Every time you explain yourself to someone who disrespects you, you're not communicating. You're negotiating the price of your dignity. And they're laughing because you think you have leverage. Let me tell you something nobody wants to admit. There's a game being played in every interaction where someone treats you like you're beneath them. And you're losing because you don't even know you're playing. In 1513, a man named Niccolo Machiavelli sat in exile, broke and bitter. He'd lost everything: power, position, respect. So he did what any strategic mind does when they've been destroyed. He reverse-engineered the entire system. He wrote down exactly how power works. Not how it should work, not the fairy tale version, how it actually works. The book was called The Prince, and it got him labeled as evil for 500 years. But here's what they don't tell you in school. Machiavelli wasn't evil. He was just honest. He looked at the patterns of who rises and who falls, who gets respected and who gets destroyed. And he wrote down the rules. The real rules. The ones that make people uncomfortable. The Prince was written for rulers and kingdoms. But the same principles that kept princes alive in Renaissance Italy work when your boss undermines you in meetings. When your partner makes you feel crazy for having boundaries. When that friend somehow always makes you the punchline. Because human nature hasn't changed in 500 years. The game is still the same. You just didn't know you were playing it. I'm going to show you what Machiavelli understood that you don't. And I need to warn you, once you see it, you can't unsee it. You'll look at every relationship differently. You'll see the strings. You'll understand why competent people get walked over while mediocre people command respect. And you'll realize the most uncomfortable truth of all. Your goodness has been your vulnerability all along. Here's the paradox that's been eating at you. You're smart, you work hard, you're capable. Yet somehow, someone less qualified, less intelligent, less deserving walks all over you. And everyone just lets them. You've tried being reasonable. You've tried setting boundaries. You've tried explaining why their behavior hurts. And none of it worked. If anything, it got worse. You want to know why? Because they're playing chess and you're playing checkers. They understand something fundamental about human nature that you were taught to deny. Machiavelli said it plainly. Men are driven by two principal impulses, either by love or by fear. That's it. Two levers, love and fear. That's all you get to work with when dealing with people. And toxic people figure this out instinctively. They use love to hook you. Those moments when they're amazing, when they make you feel seen, when they're the person you fell in love with or admired or trusted. That's not real love. That's intermittent reinforcement. It's the same mechanism that keeps people addicted to slot machines. Most of the time, the machine takes your money. That's the disrespect, the cruelty, the gaslighting. But occasionally, unpredictably, it pays out. That's the love bombing, the apology, the perfect weekend. And because the payout is unpredictable, your brain releases more dopamine than if they were consistently nice. You become chemically bonded to your tormentor. Then they use fear to keep you compliant. Not physical fear, emotional fear. Fear of abandonment, fear of being alone, fear that maybe they're right and you are too sensitive, too demanding, too much. Meanwhile, you're trying to use reason, logic, fairness. You think if you just explain clearly enough, if you just make them understand how their behavior affects you, they'll change. But reason doesn't exist on their board. It's not one of the two levers. Listen to what Machiavelli observed. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. Every interaction with them is a compliance test. They're not being thoughtless when they disrespect you. They're running diagnostics. They're asking, How much territory can I annex before this person defends the border? If you get angry, you fail. Anger tells them you're wounded, and wounded animals are easy to steer. If you stay silent and look down, you fail. Submission tells them you're domesticated. Domesticated animals exist to be used. If you explain and justify, you really fail. Because explanation is confession. You're negotiating your right to exist. You're allowing them to be the judge of whether your boundaries are legitimate. Your response teaches them the price of disrespecting you. And so far, you've taught them the price is zero. But here's what's really destroying you. It's not even their behavior. It's what you believe about the game. You were raised on a social contract. If I'm fair to people, they'll be fair to me. If I'm loyal, they'll be loyal. If I'm honest, they'll be honest. That contract is a beautiful idea. It's how civilization should work. But Machiavelli understood something that will hurt to hear. How we live is so different from how we ought to live that he who studies what ought to be done rather than what is done will learn the way to his downfall rather than to his preservation. Translation: if you keep operating on how things should work instead of how they actually work, you're going to keep getting destroyed. Toxic people aren't operating on your contract. They're operating on a predatory contract. If you're fair to me, you're weak and I'll take more. You think they're broken because they don't reciprocate your goodness. They're not broken. They're operating on a different operating system entirely. And on their OS, your virtue signals your exploitability. Machiavelli was blunt about this. Men are so simple of mind and so much dominated by their immediate needs that a deceitful man will always find plenty who are ready to be deceived. You want to believe in good. You want to trust that people have good intentions. You want to think that if you just love them enough, they'll change. They exploit that want. Your hope is their weapon. In the discourses, Machiavelli goes even further. It is necessary for anyone who organizes a republic and institutes laws to take for granted that all men are evil and that they always express the sickness of their spirit whenever they have the opportunity. That sounds dark, cynical, misanthropic. But Machiavelli isn't saying everyone is evil all the time. He's saying, build your systems assuming people will exploit them if given the chance. Because enough people will. Applied to your life. Set your boundaries assuming they'll be tested. Because they will be. The most devastating thing Machiavelli wrote, the one that probably got him called evil, is this: any man who tries to be good all the time is bound to come to ruin among the great number who are not good. Hence, a prince who wants to keep his authority must learn how not to be good, and use that knowledge, or refrain from using it, as necessity requires. Read that again. Must learn how not to be good. Not be evil, not be cruel. Learn how not to be good. There's a difference. Being good all the time in a world of predators means your lunch. It means your compassion becomes the handle they use to drag you around. Your forgiveness becomes permission to hurt you again. Your understanding becomes an excuse for their behavior. You have to be willing to be cold when necessary. Not because you're mean, but because self-preservation sometimes requires withholding your warmth from people who weaponize it. This is the pill most people can't swallow. They'd rather suffer with their goodness intact than survive by learning when to withhold it. But let me ask you, how's that working out? All right. So if the old rules don't work, what does? Machiavelli gives us the framework in one of his most famous passages. The lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. One must therefore be a fox to recognize traps, and a lion to frighten wolves. This is the entire game. Fox and lion, intelligence and strength. You need both. Let's start with the fox. the intelligence to see traps before you step in them. A toxic person's manipulation follows patterns. Compliance tests, as we discussed. Love bombing after they've crossed a line. Triangulation, mentioning how other people agree with them. Gaslighting, making you question your own memory and perception. The fox part of you learns to recognize these patterns in real time. They're being unusually nice after a fight. Fox says, "This is a Trojan horse. They're not changed. They're reactivating the social contract, so I'll drop my boundaries." They're saying, "Everyone thinks you're overreacting?" Fox says, "They're isolating me, making me think the problem is my perception, not their behavior." They're suddenly generous, making your favorite dinner, buying you something. Fox says, "I'm about to be in debt. When I don't drop my boundaries after accepting this gift, I'll be the bad guy." The fox sees the trap. But the fox can't escape wolves. That's where the lion comes in. The lion is strength, the capacity to enforce consequences without emotion. Notice, without emotion, not with anger, not with hurt feelings, not with loud proclamations of boundaries. Cold implementation. They disrespect you. The consequence activates. Your presence vanishes. You don't storm out. That's a reaction. You calmly remove yourself. "I'll come back when you've regulated." Then you leave at a normal pace. They try to call. They text. They say you're being dramatic, you're running away, you're the problem. The lion doesn't respond. The lion doesn't defend. The lion simply isn't available when disrespect occurs. You're training them like Pavlov's dog. Stimulus, they disrespect. Response, your presence evaporates. But here's what most people get wrong. They think they can be just the fox or just the lion. If you're only the fox, you're too smart for your own good. You see every manipulation coming, you understand the psychology, you can articulate exactly how they're using intermittent reinforcement to keep you hooked. But you stay anyway. Because intelligence without strength is paralysis. If you're only the lion, you're blind. You're strong, you enforce boundaries, but you don't see when you're being set up. You don't recognize the trap until you're already in it. And toxic people are smart. They'll manipulate you before you can even activate your strength. You need both. The fox to see the game, the lion to refuse to play. When you combine them, you become something they've never encountered before. Someone who both sees their tactics and is willing to walk away from the whole interaction. That's when the dynamic shifts. Now we get to the part that makes people uncomfortable. The part that sounds ruthless. But I need you to understand what Machiavelli actually meant. He wrote, "It is much safer to be feared than loved, because love is preserved by the link of obligation, which, owing to the baseness of men, is broken at every opportunity for their advantage. But fear preserves you by a dread of punishment which never fails." Most people read that and think Machiavelli wants you to be a tyrant. That's not it. Let me translate what he's saying into the language of toxic relationships. When someone loves you in a toxic dynamic, that love is transactional. They love you as long as you meet their needs, as long as you're useful, as long as you don't challenge them. The moment you set a boundary, that love evaporates. Why? Because it was never love. It was an obligation you were fulfilling. And Machiavelli says, men break obligations at every opportunity for their advantage. You've seen this. You've felt this. The person who swore they loved you turns vicious the moment you stop accommodating them. But fear, not fear of violence, fear of consequences, that's reliable. When someone fears that disrespecting you will result in loss of access to you, they respect your boundaries. Not because they love you, because they've calculated that the cost of disrespect is too high. And Machiavelli's point is, that's more stable than love. Because it doesn't depend on their feelings. It depends on cause and effect. Let me give you the framework another way. There are 3 types of relationships. 1. They love you and respect you. This is rare. This is the healthy relationship. Keep these people. 2. They love you but don't respect you. This is most toxic relationships. They're attached to you. You provide supply, validation, utility, but they don't respect your boundaries. This is the trap you're in. 3. They don't love you, but do respect you. This is what Machiavelli is pointing toward. They might not like you. They might even resent you. But they respect that violating your boundaries has consequences, so they don't cross them. And Machiavelli says, if you have to choose between being loved without respect or respected without love, choose respect every time. Because here's what happens in reality. In the toxic relationship, you're trying so hard to maintain their love. You're explaining, accommodating, sacrificing, hoping they'll see how much you care and start treating you better. But the more you do this, the less they respect you, because you've taught them that your boundaries are negotiable, that disrespect has no consequences. You think you're being loving. They think you're weak. The shift Machiavelli is asking you to make is radical. Stop trying to make them love you. Start implementing consequences. When they disrespect you, trade stops. You don't provide emotional labor. You don't help them with their day. You don't ask how they're feeling. Essential services only. The rent is due on the 1st. I'm taking the kids to school. That's it. They'll accuse you of being cold, of punishing them, of not caring. Here's what you say. Nothing. Because you don't need to defend the decision to protect yourself. They'll say, you're supposed to love me. What they mean is, you're supposed to let me hurt you without consequences. Machiavelli isn't telling you to abuse people. He's telling you that in a world where people exploit kindness, strategic withdrawal of warmth is self-preservation. The paradox is this. When you finally stop trying to earn their love, when you make it clear that disrespect means loss of access, that's often when they start respecting you. Not out of love, out of fear. Fear that they'll lose what you provide. And Machiavelli says, that's safer, because it doesn't depend on their mood. It depends on incentives. Is that cold? Yes. Is it ruthless? Absolutely. Is it effective? You already know the answer. The question is, are you willing to stop being good long enough to protect yourself? Here's where Machiavelli gets really interesting and really dark. He wrote, everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. And those few do not dare take a stand against the general opinion. What he's saying, perception is more powerful than truth. Most people misunderstand what this means. They think Machiavelli is telling you to be fake, to put on a mask and pretend to be something you're not. That's not it. He's telling you something more nuanced. People judge you by what they observe, not what you feel. And you can use that. Let me break this down into 3 layers. Layer 1, internal reality. This is what's actually going on inside you. You're hurt, you're angry, you're confused, you're grieving the relationship you thought you had. All of that is valid. All of that is real. All of that is human. Layer 2, external presentation. This is what you show them. And here's the strategic part. This doesn't have to match layer 1. You can be internally devastated and externally calm. You can be internally enraged and externally factual. You can be internally terrified and externally unmoved. Layer 3, their perception. This is what they conclude based on layer 2. And if layer 2 is controlled, their perception is, this person is not affected by my manipulation. This person is not a safe target. You're not lying. You're managing information strategically. Machiavelli goes further. It is not essential that a prince should have all the good qualities, but it is most essential that he should seem to have them. Applied to toxic relationships, you don't need to actually stop caring. You just need to appear unbothered. Why does this work? Because toxic people are pattern recognition machines. They're reading your surface behavior to determine if their tactics are working. When they insult you and you cry, they note, insult equals emotional supply. Tactic works. When they gaslight you and you scramble to prove your memory is correct, they note, gaslighting equals destabilizes target. Tactic works. When they give you the silent treatment and you chase them, they note, withdrawal equals compliance. Tactic works. But when they insult you and you look at them like a scientist observing a specimen, when you pause for 3 seconds, too long to be polite, too short to be aggressive, and say with clinical calm, that's a fascinating thing for you to say out loud, and then return to what you were doing, their algorithm breaks because your response didn't match any category they have. You didn't fight back, enemy. You didn't cry, wounded. You didn't explain, defensive. You just observed them. This is what Machiavelli meant by appearance. You're controlling the information they receive about whether their tactics work. Let me be very clear about something. This is not about suppressing your emotions. That's different. That's unhealthy. That leads to internal damage. This is about choosing where and when you express your emotions. Vulnerability is for safe people. Clinical detachment is for dangerous people. Your therapist should see your real feelings. Your trusted friend should see your real feelings. The person who's actively manipulating you should see a wall. That's not being fake. That's being strategic. Machiavelli understood that in a world where people exploit vulnerability, camouflage is survival. You show them what serves your goals, not what reveals your weaknesses. And here's the beautiful part. Over time, the performance becomes reality. When you practice appearing calm in chaos, you actually become calmer in chaos. When you practice appearing unaffected by their provocations, you genuinely become less affected. The mask eventually becomes the face. All right, we've covered the principles. Fox and lion, fear over love, appearance over reality. But none of it works. None of it actually changes the dynamic until you do the once. And this is the part that's going to hurt. The title of this video is, Do This Once. Toxic people will never disrespect you. So what's the once? It's not a sentence. It's not a boundary you set. It's not a confrontation. It's an internal event, a psychological death. You have to kill the hope. Here's what Machiavelli understood that you need to hear. Your suffering isn't caused by their behavior. Your suffering is caused by your hope that their behavior will change. You're not in a relationship with them. You're in a relationship with a version of them that doesn't exist. The kind version, the thoughtful version, the version that apologizes and means it. The version from the beginning of the relationship, before everything went dark. That version is a ghost. You're in love with a ghost. And the real person, the one actually standing in front of you, has figured out that they can control you by occasionally wearing the ghost's face. That's what the good days are. That's what the love bombing is. They put on the ghost costume just long enough for you to remember why you stayed. Just long enough to reset your tolerance for abuse. Just long enough to inject hope back into your system. Then they take the costume off and go back to who they actually are. You keep explaining yourself because you hope they'll finally get it. You keep setting boundaries because you hope they'll finally respect them. You keep staying because you hope the ghost will return permanently. Machiavelli has a brutal line for this. People should either be caressed or crushed. If you do them minor damage, they will get their revenge. But if you cripple them, there is nothing they can do. Now, he's talking about enemies in war. But apply that internally. Half acceptance doesn't work. Partial boundaries don't work. Hoping they'll be 30 better doesn't work. You either fully accept who they are or you keep suffering. The once is the moment you perform radical acceptance. Not acceptance as in, this is okay. Acceptance as in, this is reality. You look at them with your clinical detachment and you say internally, this is who they are. This is all they are capable of. They will never change. And I am okay with that. That last part doesn't mean you approve. It means you've stopped fighting reality. You've stopped exhausting yourself trying to transform a viper into a puppy. Let me explain why this is so powerful. Hope feels positive. Hope feels like love. Hope feels like you're being loyal, patient, understanding. But hope is your prison. Machiavelli wrote, "Since people decide for themselves whether to love a ruler or not, while it's the ruler who decides whether they're going to fear him, a sensible man will base his power on what he controls, not on what others have free will over." Read that as, you can't control their choices, you can only control yours. But as long as you're hoping they'll change, you're basing your well-being on something you don't control. You're giving them the keys to your emotional state. When you kill the hope, here's what dies with it. Your expectation that they'll be fair. Your need for their validation. Your attachment to their potential. The fantasy relationship you thought you were building. And here's what's born in its place. Clarity. You can't be disappointed by someone you have no expectations of. You can't be manipulated by someone whose approval you don't need. Power, real power, not power over them, power over yourself. Machiavelli understood this at the deepest level. The only reliable power is what you control. You don't control whether they love you. You don't control whether they change. You don't control whether they see the light and apologize and become better. But you control your boundaries. You control your responses. You control whether you stay or go. When you stop hoping they'll change, you stop waiting for permission to protect yourself. Think about what you've been doing. You explain your boundaries, hoping they'll agree your boundaries are reasonable. You describe how their behavior hurts, hoping they'll decide to stop. You give them chance after chance, hoping this time will be different. You're treating your own protection as something that requires their consent. The moment you kill the hope is the moment you realize their consent isn't required. Their understanding isn't required. Their approval isn't required. You just implement the boundary, period. When you make that shift, when you truly, deeply accept that they are what they are and they're not changing, something happens in your energy. It's palpable. They feel it. They can't articulate it, but they sense that the tether's snapped. You're not angry. You're not hurt. You're not trying to punish them. You've just moved on internally. You went from, please understand me, to, I don't need you to. And that shift is terrifying to them. Because the entire game depends on you caring about their perception. The entire game depends on you needing their approval. When you stop needing it, the game ends. But let me be very clear about something. Most people think they've done the once when they haven't. They say, I accept they won't change. But internally, they're still hoping. They set boundaries, but apologize for them. They implement consequences, but feel guilty. They withdraw presence, but check to see if the person noticed. That's not the once. That's theater. And toxic people can smell the difference. The real once feels different. It doesn't feel powerful, doesn't feel victorious. It feels like grief, like something died. Because something did. The version of them you loved, the relationship you thought you were building, the future you imagined. You have to let yourself feel that loss, not as a way to reopen hope, but as a funeral. You're burying something that was never real, but felt real to you. Machiavelli understood loss. He lost everything, his position, his reputation, his power. And in that loss, he found clarity. He stopped asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and started asking, "What are the actual rules of the game?" That's what the once gives you. Clarity. Cold, brutal, liberating clarity. You stop analyzing their behavior, looking for signs of change. You stop replaying conversations, looking for what you could have said differently. You stop checking your phone, hoping this time the apology will be real. You just know. The way you know the sky is blue, the way you know fire burns. This is who they are. This is how this story ends. And I'm done fighting reality. Let's get practical. You've killed the hope. You've done the once. Now, what do you actually do in the moment when they're standing in front of you running their usual tactics? First tactic, the broken record of reality. Machiavelli's framework is, don't engage with their narrative. Impose reality instead. Here's how most people fail. They engage with the emotional content of what's being said. Toxic person, you're so ungrateful. I do everything for you and this is how you treat me? Normal response, that's not true. I do appreciate you, but you can't just... Stop. You're now in the swamp. You're defending yourself against an accusation. You're accepting their frame that your gratitude is on trial. The broken record of reality sounds like this. The dishes are clean. They're in the rack. That's it. That's the response. They escalate. You always do this. You always focus on stupid details instead of the real issue. The dishes are clean. They escalate further. You have such an attitude. This is exactly what I'm talking about. The dishes are clean. Do you see what's happening? You're refusing to process emotional accusations. You're only confirming objective reality. You're not fighting. You're not defending. You're just stating facts. This strips the interaction of adjectives. Adjectives are emotional handles. Ungrateful is an adjective. Attitude is an adjective. They're subjective interpretations designed to put you on trial. Nouns and verbs are facts. The dishes are clean is factual. Can't be argued with, can't be debated. Here's why this works. Toxic people need your emotional engagement to fuel the interaction. They're looking for supply, anger, defensiveness, tears, explanations. All of that is supply. When you give them only facts, you give them nothing to work with. It's like trying to start a fire with wet wood. The mechanics are there, but the fuel won't catch. They'll escalate. They'll try to bait you into emotion. This is the extinction burst we talked about. The elevator button that's not working, so they mash it harder. You keep giving the same fact. Calm, flat, unbothered. Eventually, they'll realize this tactic isn't working. And they'll either give up or try a different manipulation. Either way, you haven't given them supply. You haven't engaged with their narrative. You just reflected reality back at them like a mirror. Second tactic, strategic asymmetry. This is where you implement what Machiavelli meant by being a fox, recognizing the trap and refusing to step in it. The trap is this. Toxic people are pattern recognition machines. They push button A, they expect response B. Push the guilt button, get an apology. Push the rage button, get a fight. Your predictability is their power. Strategic asymmetry means never match their energy. Always do the opposite of what they expect. If they're hot, yelling, aggressive, emotional, you go cold, ice, clinical, slow. If they're cold, silent treatment, withholding, distant, you go warm. Not warm toward them, warm with everyone else. Busy, engaged, social. You become a glitch in their algorithm. Let me show you what this looks like. They're screaming at you, face red, accusations flying, the whole performance. Normal response. Yell back, cry, defend, apologize. Strategic asymmetry. You wait for them to pause. You keep your face completely neutral. No anger, no hurt, just observation. You wait 3 seconds, long enough that the silence becomes noticeable. Then you say in a completely flat tone, "Does screaming make you feel better?" Note what you did. You didn't address the content of their accusations. You didn't defend yourself. You asked about the function of the behavior. You're not asking, "Why are you screaming?" That asks for an explanation, which they'll use to justify the screaming and blame you. You asked, "Does this work for you?" You just turned them into the subject of observation. They're no longer the prosecutor. They're the specimen. Another scenario. They give you the silent treatment, days of cold shoulder, expecting you to chase them, apologize, beg for communication. Normal response. "Please talk to me. What did I do? I'm sorry, just tell me what's wrong." Strategic asymmetry. You become exceptionally busy. You make plans. You see friends. You're cheerful, productive, engaged, just not with them. You're not cold toward them. You're just fine without them. This breaks their model. The silent treatment is supposed to create anxiety, to make you desperate for reconnection. When you're fine, when you're actually thriving without their attention, the tactic backfires. They thought they were punishing you. You just got a vacation. The key is, you're not doing this to hurt them. You're not trying to win. You're just refusing to play the game by their rules. Third tactic, the zero-debt protocol. Machiavelli warned, any manifest error on the part of an enemy should make us suspect some stratagem. Applied here, when a toxic person suddenly offers something, gifts, favors, apologies, during a conflict, suspect the Trojan horse. This is the cycle of abuse. After the blow-up comes the honeymoon phase. "I'm so sorry. I made your favorite dinner. I bought those tickets you wanted. Let me make it up to you." Here's what's actually happening. They're reactivating the social contract. Because the moment you accept the gift, you're now in debt. You're obligated to be nice. You're obligated to drop your boundaries. And if you don't, if you maintain your boundaries after accepting their peace offering, then you're the bad guy. After everything I did for you, you're still acting like this? The rule is simple. During boundary enforcement, accept nothing. They offer to make dinner. "Thank you, but I've already eaten." They offer tickets to something you wanted? That's generous, but I can't go. They try to do you a favor. I appreciate the thought, but I'll handle it. Keep the gates of Troy shut. No matter how beautifully carved the wooden horse is. This sounds harsh. It sounds ungrateful. Good. That discomfort you're feeling is the remnant of the social contract they trained into you. But they're trying to be nice. No, they're trying to buy back access. There's a difference. Free things from toxic people are the most expensive things you'll ever own. They come with invisible contracts written in emotional debt. During the period of detachment, during the phase where you're implementing boundaries, you maintain zero debt, essential interactions only. Everything else is thank you, But no, this isn't punishment. This is protection. Punishment is about making them hurt. Protection is about preventing your hurt. The result might look the same to them, loss of access, but the intent is completely different. And that intent changes your energy from spiteful to unbothered. Fourth tactic, the sanctions protocol. This is where we apply Machiavelli's hardest line. People should either be caressed or crushed. In the context of boundaries, no half measures. If a boundary is violated, trade stops completely. Think of yourself not as a person, but as a sovereign state. A country has borders. It has visa laws. It has trade regulations. If a neighboring country keeps dumping toxic waste across the border, the sovereign state doesn't cry about it. It imposes sanctions. You must view your energy, your emotional labor, your time, your warmth as natural resources, like oil, like gold. The toxic person is a foreign power trying to extract your resources without paying for them. When they disrespect you, sanctions activate. You don't talk about their day. You don't help them find their keys. You don't offer emotional support. You don't share your humor, your stories, your empathy. Essential services only. I'm taking the kids to school. The rent is due on the 1st. That's it. The fun parts of you, the parts that make you enjoyable to be around, those are high-value exports. You stop shipping them to a nation that's bombing your ports. They will accuse you of punishing them. They will say you're being cold. They will say this isn't what people who love each other do. What you say? Nothing. Because you don't defend your decision to protect yourself. But internally, you know the truth. This isn't punishment. This is the natural consequence of their choices. They created the sanctions. You just implemented them. And here's what they'll never understand. You're not withholding warmth to hurt them. You're withholding it to protect you. Because every time you give them warmth after they've disrespected you, you're teaching them that disrespect is free. Think of it like economics. If a product has no cost, people overconsume it. If disrespect has no cost, if they can hurt you and still get your humor, your care, your emotional labor, they'll keep doing it. Why wouldn't they? Sanctions create cost, not to punish, to educate. You're teaching them the real price of their behavior. And most of them have never paid a price before. They've been getting away with this their whole lives because people like you kept giving them access despite the abuse. You're the first person to send them an invoice. They won't like it. They'll call you heartless. They'll say you've changed. They'll say you're not the person they fell in love with. Good. The person they fell in love with was exploitable. This version isn't. Here's what you have to understand. This will trigger the extinction burst. When you stop reacting to them, when you cut off the supply they've been getting from your emotional labor, they will escalate. In behavioral psychology, this is predictable. When a reinforced behavior suddenly stops getting rewards, there's a temporary spike in frequency and intensity before it extinguishes completely. They will try everything. They'll try to make you jealous. They'll spread rumors. They'll accuse you of being abusive, narcissistic, cold. They'll bring up your past mistakes. They'll love bomb harder. They'll threaten to leave. This is the storm before the calm. This is the elevator button being mashed before they take the stairs. Most people fail here. They see the escalation and panic. Oh no, I made it worse. I should apologize, dial it back, keep the peace. Don't. The escalation isn't a sign you're failing. It's a sign you're succeeding. It means their old keys don't work anymore. It means they're running out of tactics. Hold the line. The storm is loudest right before the structure collapses. Before we finish, I need to give you the warning that Machiavelli himself would give. He wrote, You'll be held in contempt if you're seen as changeable, fearful, or indecisive. A ruler must avoid those qualities and act in such a way that everything he does gives an impression of greatness, spirit, seriousness, and strength. Translation: once you start this path, you can't waver. Inconsistency is worse than never starting. If you set boundaries and then apologize for them, you've taught them that your boundaries are negotiable. You've actually made things worse. So before you implement any of this, understand what you're choosing. You're going to lose things. You might lose the relationship entirely. Not might, probably will. Because toxic people don't change. They just find new targets. You'll lose their love. Which was transactional anyway. But it felt nice when they weren't being cruel. You'll lose mutual friends who prefer peace to justice, who say things like, "You're both at fault," and "Why can't you just forgive them?" You'll lose the fantasy of who they could have been, that ghost you've been loving. You have to let that die. But here's what you'll gain: your sanity, your self-respect, the ability to sleep at night without analyzing every interaction. Peace, not the peace of a warm hug, the peace of a fortress. Quiet, secure, unassailable. Machiavelli was honest about the trade. Since it is difficult to join them together, it is safer to be feared than to be loved when one of the two must be lacking. You're choosing safety over warmth, respect over affection, boundaries over connection. That's a heavy trade, and you have to decide if you're willing to make it. The other option is to keep hoping, keep explaining, keep trying to love them into changing. And in 10 years, you'll be in the exact same place, just more tired. But here's the warning nobody talks about, the real danger of learning these principles. You'll get good at this, too good. You'll learn to read people in seconds. You'll spot manipulation before it fully forms. You'll see the compliance tests, the love bombing, the gaslighting. All of it becomes visible like you're reading a script. And that skill doesn't turn off. You'll start seeing these patterns everywhere. In your boss, in your family, in casual friendships. Once you understand the game, you see everyone playing it to some degree. And here's where it gets dangerous. You'll be tempted to use these skills offensively, not just defensively. You'll think, if I can recognize manipulation, I can deploy it. If I understand how to be a fox and a lion, why not hunt instead of just defending? Machiavelli wrote, "The Prince for Rulers," for people who needed to maintain power in a world of backstabbing and betrayal. But you're not a ruler. You're someone trying to protect themselves from a toxic person. There's a difference between building a fortress and becoming a conqueror. The fortress says, "You can't hurt me here." The conqueror says, "I will hurt you first." One is protection, the other is predation. And the skills are the same. The intent is what differs. That's the razor's edge you're walking. I've seen people go too far. They learn these principles, and they become what they escaped from. They become strategically cold, not just with toxic people, but with everyone. They test every relationship for exploitation potential. They view kindness as weakness universally, not just in dangerous contexts. They win the game but lose their humanity. Machiavelli himself hints at this. Any man who tries to be good all the time is bound to come to ruin among the great number who are not good. Notice what he doesn't say. He doesn't say be bad all the time. He says learn when not to be good, when to withhold, when to protect. That's wisdom. But wisdom applied without discrimination becomes cruelty. So here's the real test of whether you understand this correctly. Can you still be soft with safe people? Can you still be vulnerable with someone who's earned it? Can you still hope in a context where hope is appropriate? If you can't, if every relationship becomes a power calculation, if every interaction is analyzed for manipulation, if you've lost the ability to trust anyone, then you've overcorrected. You've swung from victim to predator. And that's not strength, that's damage. There's a moment that will come if you do this right. A moment you need to be ready for. They'll be in the middle of their usual routine. The guilt trip, the manipulation, the disrespect. And they'll expect your usual response. The defense, the explanation, the eventual capitulation. But you'll just look at them. Not with anger, not with hurt. Just with that clinical observation we talked about. Like a scientist watching a predictable reaction. And they'll feel it. The shift. The absence of your need for them. The death of your hope. They might even ask, "Why are you looking at me like that?" And you'll realize you're looking at them the way you'd look at a stranger, someone you have no history with, no investment in, no expectation of. That's when they know they've lost you. Not because you told them, not because you threatened to leave, but because your energy changed. The warmth is gone. The attachment is gone. The vulnerability is gone. You're still physically there, but you're not there. Machiavelli would call this the ultimate victory. You've moved from being prey to being untouchable. You've shifted from begging for respect to requiring it as a condition of access. But it won't feel like victory. It'll feel quiet, empty, like standing in a room you used to love, but have outgrown. That's the cost. That's the trade. You get your power back. You get your peace. But you lose the fantasy. You lose the hope. You lose the version of love that involved constant forgiveness and endless patience. Some people can't make that trade, and that's okay. This path isn't for everyone. But if you're still reading this, I think you already know which choice you're going to make. You're reading this because you've lost something too. Maybe not everything, but enough. Enough dignity, enough peace, enough of yourself. The question is, what are you willing to do to get it back? Let me bring this home. The title of this video is, Do This Once. Toxic people will never disrespect you. The once isn't a technique. It's not a sentence you say or a boundary you set. It's an internal event, a psychological death. The moment you kill the hope, the moment you accept, deeply and completely, that they are what they are, and they're not changing. That's when everything shifts. Because when you're no longer hoping they'll change, you're no longer waiting for permission to protect yourself. When you're no longer attached to their potential, you're no longer manipulated by promises of who they'll become. When you're no longer seeking their validation, you're no longer destabilized by their withholding. You base your power on what you control, your reactions, your boundaries, your presence, not on what they control. And here's the paradox Machiavelli understood. When you finally stop caring about being loved by them, when you stop trying to make them understand, when you treat them with the polite indifference of a stranger, that's often when they start to respect you. Not out of love, out of fear. Fear of consequences. Fear that they've lost access to you. And Machiavelli says, that's more reliable than love. Because it doesn't depend on their feelings. It depends on cause and effect. They don't have to like your boundaries. They don't have to understand your boundaries. They don't have to agree that your boundaries are fair. They just have to know that violating them has a cost they're not willing to pay. That's respect, not the warm, fuzzy kind, the cold, calculation kind, the kind that actually lasts because it's based on reality, not emotion. Will they still try to push? Occasionally. Old habits die hard. But when they push and discover the boundary is made of steel, not paper, they recalibrate. Not because they've grown or evolved or seen the light. Because the math changed. The cost-benefit analysis shifted, and they're not willing to pay the price anymore. That's not the relationship you wanted. You wanted mutual love, respect, growth, partnership. But that relationship didn't exist. It was never on the table. You were playing that game by yourself. This is the relationship that actually exists. Transactional, strategic, regulated by consequences. It's not warm, but it's honest. And sometimes, honest coldness is kinder than false warmth. But I need to tell you something Machiavelli didn't write about. The part he left out. There's a danger here. When you build a fortress, you have to be careful not to lock yourself inside alone. Most people who learn these principles swing too far. They become so good at detachment that they can't reattach. They become so skilled at being untouchable that they can't be touched by anyone. They become the thing they fought against. That's the real art. Learning to keep your heart soft while keeping your walls hard. Learning when to be the fortress and when to be the home. Machiavelli can teach you how to protect yourself, but he can't teach you how to love again after you've learned to be ruthless. That's a different skill, a harder one. I'll end with this. Machiavelli wrote, "The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. Applied to you, the people you allow in your orbit define who you are. If you're surrounded by people who disrespect you, you're telling the world and yourself that disrespect is acceptable. When you remove toxic people, you're not being mean. You're curating your environment. You're saying, these are my standards. This is my territory. This is what I will and will not accept." That's not cruelty, that's sovereignty. And sovereignty is the only real power there is. This is what I can show you publicly. There are aspects of this. Darker strategies, psychological warfare tactics, ways to completely dismantle someone's power over you that I can't discuss openly. The algorithm doesn't like it when you get too real about human nature. Those exist behind the join button. For those of you ready to see the full picture, most people won't join. They'll watch this video, feel uncomfortable, and go back to hoping the toxic person will change. That's fine. This information isn't for everyone. But if you're still here, you're different. You're someone who's willing to face uncomfortable truths. Someone who wants real power, not comforting lies. Machiavelli wrote The Prince to get his power back. I made this video so you can get yours. The choice is yours.